Welcome, and whether this is your first time joining AARP for a virtual program or you've made it a part of your healthy lifestyle routine, we're happy that you decided to join us today. We'd love to hear where you're from, as Danette has indicated, so continue to put where you're from in the chat box. We like to see just the wealth of experience and individuality that we see among participants for this workshop. It makes our presenter very happy. I want to let you know that AARP fights for and equips people of all ages to live their best life. As we head into the winter season, particularly in the North, where I am from, we want to ensure that you have access to meaningful ways to continue to manage your physical, emotional, and mental health, especially when you may find yourself indoors more than you might be during the summer months. Managing our brain health is just as important as nourishing our bodies and staying active. There are actually 6 pillars to brain health. Become social, and being social, engage your brain, manage stress, exercise, that's very important, restorative sleep, many of us need that, and eating right. So we are going to put 2 links into the chat so you will be able to use them as additional resources if you have or want additional information about restoring your health during the winter months. But before we get started, I don't know, Robin, if you want to give us any updates about where people are coming from, we'll take additional minute to do that.
Yeah, so it looks like we're covering all across the country. We've got Michigan, Bronx, New York, the villages of Florida, Oklahoma, Montana, Virginia, Florida, Maryland, Palm Springs, California, Wisconsin. I think we've got just about every state covered. It's beautiful.
That's wonderful. So just a few quick housekeeping things to remind you of. If you have a question during the presentation, please put your question in the chat box, and we will read your question when our presenter indicates that she is ready to take questions, or you can at that time unmute yourself and ask your question if you'd like to do it that way. Otherwise, please keep your microphones on mute. We are recording this as indicated, so if the technology is working correctly, you will have access to this recording 24 hours after the session ends. Now, let me introduce our wonderful presenter. I'd like to present to you Danette Rushboldt. Danette is both a naturalist and an interpretive artist for a local park district here in Ohio, where she conducts a variety of nature drawing programs for both children and adults. Danette received a Sustainability Changemaker Award in Akron for her repurposed artwork and sustainability programming at the park. Danette has several pieces of work on display, both privately and publicly, including at the Summit County Courthouse, Akronia Gallery, the Akron Art Museum, F.A. Cyberling Nature Realm in Akron and Lake Hospital. Additionally, Danette's students' work from a nature journaling for wellness program became an exhibit installation at the FA Cyberling Nature Realm. So please join me in welcoming Danette Rushboldt.
Well, I am so thrilled to be here. This is the last of the series that I had the pleasure of participating in, and I'm so glad that you all took the time out of your day to join me. So if you have time, grab yourself a pencil and a piece of paper, because I like to think that I plant a lot of seeds, and you might find something that you really want to research a little bit more. Like Samantha said, you can get the recording and then go back and, pick things out. But before you get that, you may want to do a deep dive in some of the things. So I do encourage you to jot things down. I am a visual artist. And so for me to put things in words and to write them down is not an easy thing for me to do, but I do it as a stream of consciousness kind of way. So I sort of can get what I want to say out there as quickly as possible, and then go back and reread it and try to figure it out. Most of my students ask me, how do you come up with some of these lessons? And this particular one is called spiraling into winter, and how we can spiral out of control this time of the year. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I was walking outside, and that's my inspiration. And when I go outside, something just hits me, whether it's an observation that I've made, but this time, literally something hit me. Here in the Northeast, we have samaras. These are seeds, double samaras, that fall from the maple trees. And they literally fell on my head, and I was watching them. These are the ones, if you're not familiar with how maple trees, they helicopter. They're like, and I was watching them, and I'm watching them spiral. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And spiraling, and the little saying of spiraling out of control. And I was like, well, they're not really out of control. They're purposeful. And I thought, how can I do a program on that? So I decided to really do a deep dive into how animals handle changes in the environment, seasonal changes, and how they benefit from them. So that's how my mind works, and that's how I created this particular program. I always begin my programs with some quotes, because like I said, I'm not a writer, but I do appreciate well-written things. And again, some of these quotes are enough for you to jot down and give you a jump start into journaling, or just give you something to ponder or think about, or possibly research at a different time. I do encourage you, though, if you're going to do like a deep research on animals or things like that in nature, research on the internet, but be careful. A .org or a .edu is your best bet, because they are the ones that research the most. A .com doesn't maybe always have the backing or the rigorous research that's taken, an org or an edu to create. So if you find something interesting on a .com, just see if you can, look and see if you can find the same information on an edu or an org. So we're going to begin. If the computer gods are with me, I am going to begin sharing my screen.
Some days you can feel like a speck.
And getting to this. Whoop, we're going to go up here and hit play. So, Samantha, do you see my PowerPoint? If you could just give me a verbal yay.
Yes, I do.
Excellent. All right. So these are the quotes that I have picked for us for today. And the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. And we're going to learn about preparedness and how important it is that we are prepared for the changing seasons, especially this one, because this one's a little tricky. And the best way to predict the future is to create it. Now, predicting the future, we're going to talk about how I feel like we are the only creatures on the planet that actually predict anything. And we're going to figure out and see how we sort of put a little twist on that, and how we think that nature predicts things for us. An Oscar Wilde quote: "Wisdom comes with winters." I'll let you all ponder that one and see where that one takes you. And then this next one is from Candace Bushnell from a television show. I wasn't aware of what this was, but it was a television show back in 29. And one of the stars was Brooke Shields. So who knew? But it's thank goodness for the first snow. It was a reminder of no matter how old you become or how much you'd seen, things could still be new if you were willing to believe they still mattered. That's a good one. I like that one. I don't know who you are, Candace Bushnell, but that was good. And then here's another one. We like to think individually and how I'm feeling, but if we can think globally about some of these things, for society, a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. Right? That's amazing. We talked about these in some of my other classes that we did here, just thinking more about the future of our planet. That is our home, our first and foremost. That is what we need to protect and what we need to really consider in some of the decisions that we make. So if you're not familiar with samaras or the double samaras just means winged seed. These are the winged seeds of the sugar maple tree. Now I'm feeling a little bad for most of you in the country, because sugar maple trees only grow in the northeast part of the United States and up into Canada. So these are the ones that at this time of the year, they are turning this amazing, vibrant orange color that is just stunning. But these are their seeds, and those seed heads, they look kind of like they're kissing right there. They kind of bend down, the wing seeds bend down a little bit, so it sort of forms a little U in that inner space. And in June, July, and August, these things are growing fat on the tree, and then they tumble from the trees in October. And it was a really interesting thing, because I remember having a very particular memory of school being somehow associated with these maple seeds, and watching them as we would walk to school, like tumbling down. And I was like, gosh, that's interesting. And then I thought, well, I don't remember. Was it spring? Was it fall? Here it was both, because these trees, these sugar maple trees, drop their samaras, that helicopter to the ground, in the fall. But we have two other native maple trees in abundance here in the Northeast that their samaras tumble from the ground in spring. So this is the red maple samara. And as you can see, it doesn't quite have, they're still kissing there on the top, but their wings are just a little bit farther out, and they're red. So this is one of those things where the red maple has red samara. So that's an easy one to remember. And this tree turns beautiful red in fall right now. And the next one is a silver maple tree. Supposedly the silver maples are the ones that helicopter the best. And the reason for that might be they are the longest. They're about 2 inches. The other ones are about, an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter. But this is a good 2-inch samara. And one of those seeds, if you look at there, is slightly aborted. It hasn't quite developed as much as the other one. So as it flies, it's kind of lopsided. So it kind of it has this sort of way of tumbling down. So that one is really a lot more spinny. That's the one that really looks like it's out of control. Now we're going to talk about something just a little bit serious here for a minute. It's on average SAD, which is the seasonal affective disorder. which is a real thing. We used to call it the blues, right? The winter blahs. And, you know, that's what my grandmother called it. That's what my mom called it. It's just the winter blues. But it is a thing, and it can last about 5 months. Typically, symptoms develop in October. They worsen around the end of daylight savings time. And January and February tend to be the months with the most severe symptoms of depression. And interestingly, as I was researching this, I found that this affects older people more than younger people, and affects older women more than older men, because women are more susceptible to changes in light. And if we know about wintertime, we have less and less and less amount of daylight. Here in Ohio, we have like 94 sunny days. That's it. So we really don't have a lot going on here in Ohio, at least up here in Northeast Ohio. But some of the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder include lethargy, listlessness, an increased desire to sleep, a change in your diet. You tend to want to crave more carbs. Well, I have a theory about craving carbs, because not only is this the time of year when we're losing daylight, but it's also part of the year where there's a lot of excess food around, starting with Halloween, whether you give out candy, the neighbor is giving you candy, somebody's got candy somewhere starting in October. So maybe we didn't get that many kids coming to the house today, so we have all these extra Hershey bars. Oh my. So you start eating them, right? Then comes Thanksgiving, where historically everybody just overeats. That's what we do. And then around Christmas time, it seems like everybody's trying to give you a bakery. Your neighbor's coming over with cookies, or your grandchildren are learned a new recipe and they want to try it out on you, or whatever it is. But we seem to be eating more. Well, when you eat more carbs, you crave more carbs. So what happens to most of us by January? We're like, oh, we got that New Year's resolution where I'm going to lose the 10 pounds that I gained over the last, and we become like depressed, right? We're like, oh my goodness gracious. So we're going to look to nature to see how nature handles some of the changes that happen physically in our world, and how they get through this particular time of year. So we're going to see if some of these things will work for you. So please know that nature prepares for the future by developing strategy. Nature does not try to predict the future. It's really, really important that we know that if this is historically a tough time for us, for whatever reason, there's a myriad of reasons out there, but it is your job to prepare for it. So I'm going to give you all kinds of fun facts and tools and things that animals do to help you prepare for this and have as many tools in your toolbox to get you through this, tricky time of the year. So here we go. We have some, and I'm not going to tell you what, but there might be a little test after this. We do encourage y'all to get your typing fingers ready, because I do ask you a lot to participate in the chat box if you want to. But we're going to discuss these three guys, because one of these four animals, different animals have different strategies for how they manage winter. Now, the animal on the left, some of you don't have this animal in your parts of the country, but the animal on the left is one of my favorites. It is a woodchuck, or a whistle pig, or a groundhog, or a land beaver. Okay, he's got several different names, but he's really terrific. That guy, and then our little brown bat in the upper middle part of our screen there, are one of the few true hibernators. All of these animals on this page have developed a strategy of hibernation that helps them to get through winter. Now we have a snake at the top. That is a garter snake, not garden. They're garter, and they got that common name because it supposedly looked like the garter socks that men wore back in the 20s. So it is a garter snake. And then the frog at the bottom is a wood frog. So we're going to learn a little bit about how these guys prepare for winter. The groundhog and the bat are mammals. So mammals have a regulated body temperature. So in order for them to survive the winter through hibernation, which hibernation is when body processes slow down to a screeching halt, metabolism slows, heart rate slows, breathing slows, all of those things slow down to the point where these animals cannot rouse quickly from this. It's another process for them to come out of the state of hibernation. So the mammals, in order to maintain that body temperature, they eat a lot. They start at the end of summer just eating everything in sight. The bat is an insectivore, so it's just piling on as many bugs as it can before it goes into hibernation, where in a cave, most likely. And the woodchuck or the groundhog or the whistle pig, whichever you prefer, he has a burrow that he lives in throughout the year, and that is where he is going to go. But he is an omnivore, so he eats mostly plants, but he'll eat, a slug or a grub or something in there. That's why we can't really call him an herbivore, because he does eat some of the things that might be like stuck in the grass there as he's making his way through. So they eat and eat and eat and eat, go down into their cave or into their burrow, and they're done. They just let it happen, go to sleep. They can stay into hibernation for 3-4 months if necessary. Now the garter snake is a reptile, and the frog is an amphibian. They're ectotherms, which means their body temperatures change with the temperature outside. So on a really, really cold day, even in the spring and fall, these guys are not very active because their bodies don't need a lot. They're not going to waste their resources moving. So they're kind of really dormant almost. So in the wintertime, when there is not a lot of opportunity for them to bring up their body temperature with the temperature outside, they just go and hibernate. Now, the wood frog does something really, really amazing. They call them frogsicles. These guys actually live way up high, like up into the Arctic Circle. You can find wood frogs. They can hibernate for up to 8 months, and their bodies freeze almost solid. And I say almost because their liver produces extra glucose, and their bodies have water in them, and their bodies will freeze outside the cell, but that extra glucose that they produce just is enough to keep the inside of their cells from freezing. So the outside freeze, but the inside doesn't. They look like they are little rocks. Their eyelids freeze. They have white covering them. They look like they're dead, but they're actually frogsicles. And oh my goodness, this is a species that researchers and scientists are so wanting to figure out, how does it do it, and what's the trigger, and all of these things. And what do these two do? They just will burrow under leaf litter or just under some, fallen leaves or something like that, so that they can be safe from predators mostly. But other than that, they're good. So those are the hibernators. Try to remember them. Not going to say why, but try. The next group that we have here are the Migrators. These are the ones that get out of Dodge. They're like, nope, 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 nope. Inhospitable, not staying. You all probably recognize some of them. We have the monarch butterfly. We have the green darner dragonfly. We have the ruby-throated hummingbird. And then the large bird on the right is the dark-eyed junco. So let's start with the one that you're probably most familiar with, the monarch. They're all across the country. These guys migrate 2,000 miles. And that's an insect, friends. That is a tiny little insect with papery, feathery wings that makes this huge migration down to Mexico every year without ever having been there. The brood that leaves to go to Mexico is the last brood that was born up here in Ohio. There's other parts of the country where it's a little bit different. Your broods can go, some of them go east-west from California in, but in Ohio, these guys leave Ohio in the end of September for a trip that they've never been on before. Nature is amazing. They figured it out. They know how to get down there, and they stay down there until it's time to come back, and then they lay eggs, and we get like 3 or 4 broods up here in Ohio, given if the temperatures are right and all of that. But 2,000 miles just to get out of here. That's quite the journey. The dragonflies, they have a little bit shorter of a distance. They only go 800 miles. And it's an insect. These are amazing creatures that you wouldn't think they have the capacity to go that far, but they go around 800 miles. And their lifespan in this form as an adult is only 5 to 7 months. So their entire life that they have when that last brood hatches is just getting somewhere as far away from where they were born as possible, which that's amazing, right? The hummingbird at the bottom. Now, if we thought that was good, the hummingbird flies all the way down to South America. And they fly 500 miles over the Gulf of Mexico without stopping. 500 miles across the Gulf of Mexico without stopping. That was worth saying again. And their average speed is 33 miles per hour. I'm not doing that math. That's a long haul for this tiny little bird that's probably 5 inches long. Makes that without stopping. You try doing that on your next car trip where you're not going to stop and see how far you get. The next one is this dark-eyed junco here, which if you're not familiar with Ohio, or if you've never lived in Ohio, Ohio is not probably your destination in the wintertime unless you maybe have family up this way, but it's not like a mecca of, ooh, the weather's nice. It's not. We have lots of snow. We don't have very many sunny days, and it's cold, and there's a lot that's going against us here in Ohio. But believe it or not, that dark-eyed junco right there migrates from way up north to Ohio, right? So wherever they're from, Ohio is much more hospitable in the wintertime. What? Sometimes it's just a matter of perception, right? So these are the migrators, the ones that, how do they prepare? They get out of Dodge. They leave because a lot of the times it's their food source is not available, or the conditions are just not right. So remember these 4 animals: the monarch butterfly, the green darner, ruby-throated hummingbird, and the dark-eyed junco. Okay, now let's see what the strategies is for this next group of animals. These are what I like to call the adapters. These are the ones that stay put. They do not leave Ohio. They do not sleep through the winters here in Ohio. They have figured out how to adapt. And there's several different strategies that we're going to talk about, but the first one is called torpor, Torpor. And that means just like smaller extended periods of rest where the weather conditions are really bad, it's sleeting, it's below freezing. They have their burrows and holes, which what? They created, right? They know where they are and they go hunker down in them, or they know where a nice little hole is and they hunker down for, a day or 2 or 3 until the conditions are right. They've also cached food, and that's CACHE, cache. They take the end of summer, all fall to store food, like filling up the pantry. Gotta get it ready because winter's going to be tough and we're going to run out of food. So they are busy hiding things and stockpiling things so that they can get through the winter, right? Now, this guy down here, we're going to start with him. He is the, on the bottom left, that is the black-capped chickadee. We mentioned him in a different session that I did, but this tough little guy actually stores seeds all over the place. And just like that wood frog that researchers are so excited to study, researchers, scientists, as well as people in the medical profession want to study black-capped chickadees. Why? Because in the fall, the hippocampus section of their brain increases 30%. And the hippocampus part of the brain is the part that stores memory. So this part of their brain swells. Why? So it can remember all of these hiding spots that it has cached away all of its food. Come come springtime, their brain doesn't need all of that space in its memory anymore. So it shrinks back to its normal size. That is an animal that they are studying to see how memories are stored, how the hippocampus actually works in dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. This is when we as human beings look to nature to solving problems. There's a special name for that. We call it biomimicry. So that is one animal that is really, really being looked at for the reasons of that could potentially change our lives for people that are suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. The top one is a red squirrel. They're the ones, supposedly, squirrels plant more oak trees than humans do. And I believe that because these guys, they don't have that expanding brain like the chickadees. So they plant or store seeds everywhere. They love acorns. So those acorns are everywhere. And they sometimes forget a few where they put them. So those are the ones that if they get everything right and all the ducks are in a row, they end up sprouting and becoming oak trees. The striped skunk is one of that torpors. It sort of just hangs out till the time is right. They might find refuge where? Under your porch. So be careful. You may get a visitor that's going to hang out there in really, really inclement weather. The chipmunk can stay for months sometimes under its burrow because it has taken all kinds of seeds and whatnot and sort of stashed its burrow full of its food. So it doesn't have to come out if it doesn't need to. Raccoons are probably one of the best adapting animals on the planet. At least they are to be able to deal with humans and work with humans because they actually can get into some pretty amazing situations and things to find food. So they are the rascals. That's how they earned that name, rascally raccoons. And the one on the on the right is the mourning dove, mourning, and that's just a beautiful bird, and it has a call. A lot of people think they're hearing owls, but it's actually the mourning dove with the whoo, whoo. That's the call that they make. So these are all adapters. They will find and cache things and be able to survive even in these inclement weather. So these are the adapters. Okay. Now we did talk about, predictors here. Here in the Northeast, we have an obsession with all things woolly bears. If you don't know what a woolly bear is, I'm here to tell you. A woolly bear is a caterpillar, and what comes out of it is a Isabella tiger moth. But in the Midwest, folklore tells us that predicting the upcoming winter is as easy as looking at the woolly bear caterpillar. So we have woolly bear festivals, woolly bear costume contests, all things woolly bear, because why? As human beings, we want to predict what's going on for the future. Instead of preparing, we're going to predict, we're going to guess. We're going to leave it to a caterpillar to let us know what winter is going to be like. So here's how it works. The caterpillar has different colors, patterns to it. It is brown in the center and has black on either side. So a harsh winter means that there's more black on the sides and just a smidge of brown in the center. If you see your woolly bear caterpillars looking like that, you better look out, because winter is a coming and it's bad. A moderate winter is where they're sort of like evenly spaced. They're all the brown parts is about as big as the black parts. A mild winter, the more brown there is and the less black, right? So now this one, it gets a little tricky because sometimes they're hard to tell the front from the back on these guys. But if the front of the caterpillar, where its antenna and its head are, if that's much larger dark, that means the winter's going to come on hard and heavy, and it's going to be really, really rough. But then it's going to be okay, and it's going to end, not so bad. If you have a tiny black head on the front of it, that means winter's going to come on kind of calm. It's going to be nice. And then it's going to hit us. And I'm telling you, we have had record snowfall, and I'm talking feet, like 18 inches of snow here in Northeast Ohio as late as May, the end of April. So I know you people in Colorado, you're like, that ain't nothing. We still get it in June. But here in Ohio, we don't want it. You don't want it hanging around here till April. But so again, these are the things that we do to make us more aware of nature, make us maybe think that nature can help us, or they're going to tell us, and then now we can react to that. But we just have to prepare. And that's what nature is really all about, preparing for these seasonal changes. So what can we do? Surround yourself with color. That's one of the biggest things that we can do, because there's not a lot of color out there. It's kind of blah, it's kind of gray. It's kind of, we need visual stimulation when we're going through these periods of lack of sunlight and things like that. So surround yourself with color, whether it's just putting out colorful pillows or changing, putting out colorful curtains and opening windows as often, not windows, but opening the curtains as much as you can. Everything about winter makes us want to get all cozy and get that, cup of hot cocoa and just either hunker down with a good book or, binge on Netflix. But we really need to not cave ourselves in. And one of those easy things is surround yourself with color. Bring in fresh flowers from the store. Bring in, just change artwork on your walls. Just surround yourself with color. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that do is exercise, like Samantha said in the beginning. But I have to tell you that really big belly laughs count as exercise. I don't know about you, but I've laughed so hard that I feel like I've done sit-ups. So laugh laughing is so important. So we're gonna help you out with some jokes here that we're gonna talk about. Eat right. Remember, try to not garbage up on the carbs if you can, because you're just going to keep craving them. It's just going to make you feel more lethargic. So try to eat right. Try to make sure that you have something living that you're eating. And by living, I just mean it hasn't been processed. It hasn't been cooked. You know, fruit, bananas, oranges, lettuce, those kinds of things. So eat something living. Try at least once a day. Treat yourself, right? Plan a trip, learn something new. Now I put learn something new as treating yourself because that is treating yourself, right? The older we get, the more, you know, we kind of get in our headspace, like been there, done that, same, but there is so many interesting new things to learn every time I go outside, every time I learn something new, I observe something different, or I think about it differently. Like I said, how many times have these samaras been hitting me in the head when finally the epiphany came? I got to really think about this for a minute. How am I going to keep myself from spiraling out of control? So learn something new, look at things differently, right? Next one is get social support. Again, joining classes such as this one. But after we leave here in this hour, that's why I'd love for you to write things down and jot them down, because it can be so fun and we're learning all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the computer goes off and now what? So jot these things down so you can go back and research them, or just do a Google search on, you know, hummingbirds. What? How did that? And then so you have something to look forward to. Okay. So by joining this class, bravo to you. And from what I understand, Miss Robin had told me, and that there's so many AARP virtual classes that you can join, from exercising to how to just so many things. So there's lots and lots of things for you to do. But as I said in the last class, you got to sign up, but you got to show up, right? That's really, really important. So let's keep it going here. Let's go back to add some color. Now we're going to go and do a little deep dive into these to figure out how we're going to do that. And I just think it's fun because like I said, I love learning stuff. So I did some research on the Native American culture and how they perceive color. So we talked about adding some color. So if you put a beautiful red pillow on your couch to sort of jazz it up, you might just be thinking that in the indigenous people, they believe that red is the color of the earth element and the mountains, and it is often used in body and face painting. So again, if we can make these connections, now our brain is healthy, we're thinking different things. We're not just thinking about that red. Now we're I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Yellow represents the south. It's the direction of fire, and it's also the power of pollen, divinity, and the perfect ceremonial control is how the native, some tribes in the Native American population view the color yellow. Now green. Peyote art shows green objects that represent Mother Nature. Indigenous people used green herbs, and for them, the color sustained life itself. Green also stood for youth, utility, labor, fertility, freedom, and growth. So every time you look at that color green, just think about how vibrant and amazing you are, right? Brown. Brown has undetermined and unspecific meanings in the Native American parlance, but it mostly represents the color of the skin. Interesting. For Native Americans, blue symbolizes peace and heaven. So if you want a more peaceful situation, according to Native American culture, you surround yourself with blue, right? And the last color we're going to go over is purple. In certain native tribal populations, purple represents wisdom. So if you're feeling snappy and you're a person that doesn't wear a lot of colors, add some purple to your wardrobe and go out there and feel confident that you have the wisdom going with you, right? In that color purple. So yay. So just some things to think about. And again, if you want to do a little deeper dive to see how other cultures view that, how designers view that, how psychologists view colors, there's so many different ways to interpret color. So that might be something you want to do. Okay, have some laughs. Now, I'm not very good at telling jokes. I never was. I can laugh at a joke and then somebody will ask me what it is, and like 2 minutes later, and I can't remember it. But I do remember my son was particularly going through a hard period, and he lives in another state, so it was hard for me to know that he was going through something that I couldn't be right there. So I would Google jokes and I would just text him jokes, and that would make him happy. And one of the jokes that I do remember, because it's just so sweet and so funny, is what's invisible and smells like carrots? Bunny farts. Right? It made him laugh. It made him smile. And that made my day since I couldn't be there physically with him. So let's see what other kind of jokes we have going on here. What did the wool hat say to the scarf? You hang around while I go ahead. Right? What did the wool hat say to the scarf? I see somebody shaking their head. Yep, buddy. Hey, this is good stuff I'm sending you right now. Which side of the tree has more leaves? The outside. Now I'm going to ask for a little bit of participation here. So get ready to open up that chat box and type in, if you think you know, the more you take, the more of them you take, the more you leave behind. What are they? All right, Samantha, it's all you. You let me know when somebody types in that chat. If they think they know, the more of them you take, the more you leave behind. What?
Okay, so Annette jumped in right away and said steps.
Oh, yeah. Who was that?
That's Annette.
Annette.
Annette agree. Annette, where are you from? When I read that, I knew immediately, oh, she must be right, because it makes sense.
Right. It
Tacoma,
absolutely makes
Washington.
Woohoo! And I love to if you were in any of my other classes, I love to award points that don't really mean anything, but you get 1,000,000 points, Missy. That was amazing. So now I have 2 short videos that I want to share with you, because as I was doing research on animals and spiraling out of control, I found that there's some amazing animals that do some amazing things, and it has to do with their locomotion and how they spiral. So this one is a spider.
An intrepid spider gymnast has delighted.
Can you hear that? Let me ask you that first.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So much that they created a robot to mimic it. Sabrenis reckenbergi flips its way down sand dunes in Morocco, and it's an entirely new species. Described for the first time in an April issue of Zootaxa, the spider propels itself forward by jumping from the ground and moving its legs in a flick-flack motion, somersaulting its way from point A to point B. To protect itself from predators and the harsh sun of southeastern Morocco, the spider makes itself silk-woven towers in the sand to hide out. The Berlin scientist who discovered Sabrenis reckenbergi was so charmed by his find that he even created a nifty robot to mirror its movements, offering a 10-inch long mechanical foil that walks and somersaults across surfaces just like its inspiration.
Who does that? Right? Who does that? That was amazing. Oops, I'm going the wrong way here. Hold on. That, when I saw that, what? And it does that to keep its appendages from burning on this really hot sand, but it just sort of throws itself down the hill. Amazing, right? So now let's go to this one. This one, I'm not even gonna say it. It's called the globular springtail. So this one's a little bit longer, but it's so interesting.
You're about to watch this globular springtail jump and spin faster than any other animal on Earth. Ready? I was planning to film this video in the lab, but now, like a lot of us, I'm working from home. But I'm also using this opportunity to work with a different camera person.
You look like a pirate.
So I hope this video ends up sounding and looking okay. So a few months ago, I wasn't even 100% sure what a springtail was, but then they showed up in huge numbers here on the lid of my trash can. After it rained, they'd climb out of the mulch and hang out here on the lid. They're called springtails because they use a tail-like appendage to spring themselves away from danger. So I brought them back to the lab and started filming them, and now I'm proud to say that part of my research is on trash can springtails. So, for a start, we've been filming a bunch of jumps in high speed and tracking their movements frame by frame. Filmed about 50 individuals so far, and the data we're getting back is incredible. Here's the coolest part. When that springtail took off, it was spinning at a rate of 374 flips per second. That's equivalent to 22,440 rotations per minute. To put that in perspective, the main rotor of a helicopter spins from 250 to 600 RPMs, while the max RPM of most race car engines range from 7,000 to 15,000. So these tiny little springtails, as far as I can tell, might be the fastest spinning animals on Earth. These jumps and spins are all powered by a spring-loaded tail tucked underneath their body called a furca. When it's released, the underbelly of the springtail folds open and throws the tail down and around the body. The details of which parts of the body make up the energy-storing spring and how the tail is released at the start of the jump are mostly unstudied and unknown. But so far, we've recorded an average upwards acceleration of around 700 meters per second squared, which is right between that of a leafhopper and a flea. Springtail jumps are incredible when you consider what they're doing relative to how small their bodies are. For scale, here's one next to the tip of a toothpick. It's only about 1.5 millimeters long and 1 millimeter tall. A more or less vertical jump looks like this. At the apex of this jump, the springtail is 48 millimeters off the ground, and its rate of spin has fallen from 255 to 150 flips per second. It'll continue slowing its spin rate as it falls and bounces off the ground. For a sense of how fast all this happens, here's that same exact jump, filmed from above and played back in real time. Right now, all we're doing is answering what questions, trying to describe what these animals do when they jump. But there's a lot of really interesting why questions, like why are they spinning so fast in the first place, and is it even on purpose?
So with that being said, I just saw what time it was and we need to get moving. My goodness gracious. So I'm going to bypass some of the things that I was going to ask you all to help me out by remembering which animals migrate, which animals adapt. But what I really want to get to are some other tools for you guys. And I love giving you things to read or things to help you continue learning as we're going through these dark times of the year. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer is one of my favorite books of all time. I don't buy that many books anymore because I'm trying to downsize, but I had to buy this book when I read it. And it is a little passage says, drawing on her life as an indigenous scientist and as a woman, Kimmerer shows how other living beings, asters and goldenrod, strawberries and squash, salamanders, algae, and sweetgrass offer us gifts and lessons, even if we've forgotten how to hear their voices. For only when we can hear the language of other beings will we be capable of understanding the generosity of the earth and learn to give our own gifts in return. It is an easy read. I really encourage you guys to, you can check it out at your library and read it. She actually has an audio version that you can get and she reads it so you can hear her voice as well. The other one is The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey, and that is a winner of the John Burroughs Medal. And it says, while an illness keeps her bedridden, Bailey watches a wild snail that has taken up residence on her nightstand in a potted plant. As a result, she discovers the solace and the sense of wonder that this mysterious creature brings and comes to a greater understanding of her own place in the world. The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating is a remarkable journey of survival and resilience, showing us how a small part of the natural world can illuminate our own human existence while providing an appreciation of what it means to be fully alive. Those are two books that I highly recommend. Also, National Institute of Environmental Health and Sciences website. Don't just Google their website. Go to the kids environment, kids health section. There are games, there are puzzles, there are activities. In fact, this piece of art that you're seeing right here is by an artist named Bev Doolittle, and it's sort of an I Spy. She is this amazing artist that creates these sort of hidden pictures. So you have to find how many pinto horses are hidden in this piece of art that she's created. So I encourage you to Google her and the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, but Google the kids environment, kids health section. That is, it is like 1 minute. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Samantha to do our final. I'm sorry that I ran long, but there's
this has just been wonderful. And we want to thank you so much, Danette, for coming out. We do have people that indicated in the chat that they've read at least one of the books. Someone said they read both. But can you quickly name the books again?
Absolutely. Braiding Sweetgrass. In fact, I'll put the
Okay.
by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating.
Okay. Thank you. So, again, Danette, it's been wonderful. And I've learned so many things when I listen to you talk about your experiences and things that you want us to know about. One thing, however, was disappointing tonight, and that's the skunk. I'm just so sorry to know that they don't hibernate during the winter. We here where I live, I am looking for them at dusk and I am looking for them at dawn because they love our community. I just thought when it got colder, they'd go someplace and I'd be safe.
You are not safe, I'm sorry to say, but
wow.
February is their breeding period. So they are super active and very different come February. So, yeah.
So, I want to thank not only you, but I want to thank all of the participants that joined us this evening. This is the last session of the Nature's Canvas, A Journey to Wellness. So as a reminder, AARP is very much committed to helping you to live your best life. If you want to learn more about the 6 pillars of brain health, feel free to explore the website www.aarp.org/health/brain-health. And Robin has put that again into the chat for you to take a look at. She has also put in the link about the article about the 6 pillars for you again, and that too is in the chat. We want you to continue to think about how you might connect with nature, regardless of your situation. Connecting with nature helps with physical wellness and serves to nurture your mental and emotional well-being. We hope you will continue to join AARP on your learning journey, and we truly want to thank you again for joining us. As a reminder, all 4 of the Canvas videos will be available to you and found on the AARP Ohio YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much. And let's give a round of applause for Danette.
Well, I'm reading some just wonderful, kind things that people are writing in the chat. So thank you so much. And I hope that you all have a wonderful winter and you prepare for it. Don't predict it, prepare for it. Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you and bye-bye.